Now, what's a trust? Well, a trust is an arrangement, a written arrangement, by which the person making the writing, who's called the donor, the grantor, the person that's actually creating the trust, will place assets into trust to be managed by an individual or individuals called a trustee for the benefit of other people or persons, or a person called beneficiaries. Now, the arrangement is said to be fiduciary in nature. That means a high level of trust. And that's placed upon the trustee to properly manage the assets that are placed inside the trust. Now, a trust can be thought of, if you want to conceptualize it, like a container in which you can place things in to be held. And there's a manager of that container who's called the trustee. Now, in order for this to happen, the trust has to be properly funded. Now, how is a trust funded? Well, a trust can be funded simply by opening a bank account under the name of the trust, or creating a new deed, placing a piece of real estate into trust. Remember, a trust is like a container. You can place assets in. It could be real estate. It can be money. Now, folks, these are all general terms. Trusts get very specific in nature, but in general, there are a couple of characteristics that you must understand. First, a trust can be revocable or revocable, some people will pronounce it. A revocable trust is one in which you can think about this container as being flexible, where assets can be taken in, pulled out, people can be changed inside the trust, beneficiaries can be changed inside the trust. In other words, the trust is fluid. It can be changed. Things that are placed in can be taken out. The second category of trust is irrevocable or irrevocable. And now these trusts, the container is more structured. Once you put something in general, you can't take that thing out of the container. It gets locked in. And still there's a manager of the trust, and there are beneficiaries of these types of trusts, but those people generally cannot be changed as well. So it's a very structured trust. Well, you might be saying, what's the reason for creating this trust? Well, there's different types of reasons, different types of trusts. In general, if we're talking about revocable or flexible trusts, these types of trusts will be realty trusts, right? And so real estate will be placed into these types of trusts, and these trusts, once again, are very flexible. Banks, if there are mortgages on properties, will generally accept these types of trusts. And with a revocable realty trust, you can be the trustee of the trust. You can also be the beneficiary. You can be all of the parties involved in the trust, or there can be other people involved in the trust. But things can be changed. Things can be taken out. In general, if we're talking about banks and mortgages, banks want to see that you, if you're the owner of the property, you're the trustee of the trust and potentially the beneficiary of the trust. They just want to ensure that you are still the main person on title. Another type of trust that has revocable facets in it will be what we call an inter vivos trust. And these types of trusts are drafted like your will and involve the parties that you would involve with your will. And the idea here is, in general, once again, you're avoiding probate with an inter vivos trust. In general, folks, all trusts avoid probate. But with an inter vivos trust, you have that specifically in mind. Yet other types of revocable trusts that fall into the revocable trust category until a triggering event occurs would be trusts to avoid estate taxes. Like where I'm from, Massachusetts, there is still an estate tax for estates that are over $1 million. We create trusts in order to reduce or eliminate estate taxes in people's estate plans. Now, what are the types of irrevocable or irrevocable trusts? The trusts that are really structured, the containers that are really structured where you put something in, you can't take it out. Generally, I see these types of trusts in Medicaid planning. Because remember, with Medicaid, if you watch some of my other past videos, and make sure you do, with Medicaid planning, there is a 5-year look-back period. And so in order to trigger that 5-year look-back period or start it ticking, you must separate yourself from your assets. An irrevocable or irrevocable trust allows you to do that. And remember, those types of trusts are very structured. You can't change the people in general, and you can't take assets out once you place them in. And yet still another type of trust is a testamentary trust. Now, this is usually a trust that you place inside your will, and it becomes irrevocable at the time of your passing. And that type of a trust does need to go through probate in general, because usually it's contained inside your will. But the reason why you would do a testamentary trust is to take care of a sick loved one or possibly a minor child. But those are the reasons why we create those types of trusts. Now, if you're watching me on Facebook, make sure that you like the video. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe in the lower right-hand corner. And some of my prior videos, if you're watching YouTube, will be appearing here. Make sure that you check those out as well. Dave Ceruolo, CeruoloLaw.com.